Right, so every year in Japan, it seems like there's always a bunch of really big cards right at the end of the year for the New Year's Eve holiday, December 30th and 31st in particular. The last couple of years, there have been a lot of World Championship fights held on these 2 days, and this year is no exception. Originally, there were supposed to be 8 World Championship fights held between December 30th and December 31st. Unfortunately, one of those was canceled with Lee Haskins, the IBF Bantamweight champion, pulling out of his fight due to an injury. But we still have 7 to go, so I'm going to try and cover them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cover them by the card, because it's going to be split up into 4 different cards, which feature not only the championship bouts, but also some high-level contenders from Japan. Basically, the highest level domestic contenders that they have, who you may see in the near future fighting for world titles at the various weight classes in which they campaign. But for now, I'm going to start off with the December 30th card, which features the main event between Naoya Inoue, the rising pound for pound star, one of the biggest stars in Japan, if not the biggest at this point, facing off against former super flyweight champion Kohei Kono. Of course, Naoya Inoue is going to be defending his WBO super flyweight title. He comes in at 11-0 with 9 knockouts. Kohei Kono, for his worth, comes in at 32-9-1 with 13 knockouts. And even though Kono's record does show a lot of losses on it, he has never been stopped, and by and large, all of those losses were very close decisions. He's fought pretty much a who's who of the super flyweight division the last few years. He fought Nobuo Nashiro, fought Tomas Rojas, fought Koki Kameda. Of course, everybody knows, especially the Western Hemisphere, knows about the Kameda brothers. Liborio Solis, of course, who recently pretty much got robbed against Jamie McDonnell. Kono lost a majority decision to him in a fight where both men were down. So, that just proves a little bit of what he has altogether. And a few months ago, he wound up actually losing his super flyweight title in what was a WBA unification between the regular titleist Luis Concepcion and Kono himself. It was actually a very close fight, and Kono was actually winning throughout most of the early to mid rounds. It wasn't until the later rounds where Kono appeared to tire a little bit. Concepcion managed to take advantage, win the final rounds, and managed to clinch getting the unanimous decision over in Tokyo, Japan. And in spite of that, Kono showed a good effort for himself. He's never lost really a clear decision. So Naoya Inoue is looking to prove a lot here right now. Of course, he came through in major form when he first burst into the division with the big-time second-round knockout of Omar Narvaez. Of course, also defended against 3 number 1 contenders in a row with a second-round knockout of Warlito Perenas, a 12-round unanimous decision, tough decision over David Carmona. I mean, a tough but clear decision. He definitely won majority of the rounds, but Carmona was a pretty difficult opponent for him to fight. A guy with a tough chin and just kept coming right at him nonstop. And then, of course, his last fight versus Karun Jarupian-Lerd, where Jarupian-Lerd gave him a little bit of difficulty early on. Was showing himself to be another very sturdy opponent, but now Inoue managed to pull through in impressive fashion, show off a variety of different skill sets, boxing on the inside, boxing on the move, boxing up on his toes, setting up behind the jab, and he managed to pull off a 10th round knockout in that fight. So, of course, here against Kohei Kono, he's looking to prove a lot. Considering the fact that Kono's never been defeated clearly and he's never been stopped. And he's also fought pretty much the top fighters of the super flyweight division the last few years. Some of them, anyway. As many as he could pretty much get in his way, basically. So if Inoue were to conclusively defeat Kono by decision, or even more so, if he was to knock him out in impressive fashion, I think that'll be a very big boon to Naoya Inoue's overall popularity as well as his overall ranking in terms of not just pound for pound, but also in the super flyweight division itself. Considering the fact that with the recent war that Roman Gonzalez and Carlos Cuadras put on, as well as the semi-breakout performance of Caliafai over Luis Concepcion, that stature as the potential premier super flyweight may be somewhat in jeopardy, if he hasn't necessarily lost it already. I definitely place him pretty much in the top 3. I'd say you could mix and match him, Cuadras, and Gonzalez pretty much wherever you want to. I think there's good arguments for any and all of them. and especially for him in terms of the pound for pound rankings, which I've mentioned before in past videos. I think that he's managed to prove quite a bit in only 11 fights, two world titles across 3 weight classes, and one of the two guys that he managed to take to decision, who actually lasted the distance with him, Ryoichi Taguchi, is currently the man that I consider the very best fighter at 108 pounds, the very best of the world champions, and really just one of the most fun fighters to watch because of the fact that he's so well schooled all around. He's probably one of the best all around fighters in the sport, in my opinion. So for Inoue to have kind of manhandled him in the fight that they had a couple years back is quite impressive. Of course, Kono is looking to come in here and upset the odds, upset the apple cart, and prove himself just maybe a step too far for the precocious young Naoya Inoue. He's a veteran, 36 years old, has a lot of fights under his belt, and he's fought some of the biggest and baddest guys around the weight class. So he's definitely coming in very well prepared, probably the most well prepared fighter that Inoue's faced since Narvaez, as well as being a little bit fresher than Narvaez. Of course, Narvaez was a little bit on the older side and a guy that did depend on his reflexes to a certain degree, which, of course, they tend to fade with age, and Inoue took a major advantage of that and just blitzing him in a couple of rounds. So this fight is going to be very, very interesting to watch. It's going to be taking place on December 30th. Friday, December 30th. It's going to be at the main events in Japan usually come on around 7 p.m.-ish Japanese time, which would correspond to 2 a.m. Pacific time, or 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 10 a.m. for you guys in the UK. I know I have a fair few UK viewers out there. So just try and check out exactly which time zone corresponds to what 7 p.m. is going to be for Japan, and you'll probably be able to catch this fight. I'm going to put some links in the description of some channels, basically live stream channels of the Japanese channels, so that you guys can actually get a chance to check these fighters out. It's unfortunate that these guys the promoters don't have an international stream for everybody to be able to watch worldwide, and that the promoters could profit off of, something that I think would be a very big boon. And actually something that one of the promoters of one of these particular fights is going to be doing. They're actually going to have a international live stream put on by the promoter himself, which I think is a very, very good idea. It's just unfortunate that's not going to be for the Inoue and Kono fight. It's actually going to be for Moises Fuentes versus Kohei Tanaka on December 31st, but I'll get more on that in the video where I talk about that fight specifically. Also on this card, along with Inoue and Kono, is going to be Akira Higashi, 3-weight world champion and current IBF light flyweight champion, defending his IBF title against Witawas Basapian, aka Samarchia Kokitjim. A veteran from Thailand, a guy that's 35-1 with 12 knockouts. Akira Higashi, of course, is 24-5 with 12 knockouts. So we're getting a bit of a battle of guys that have, gone through the gauntlet by and large. Akira Higashi, of course, fought the great Roman Gonzalez. His main losses were to, great fighters in their own right. Roman Gonzalez, Pedro Guevara, who is one of the other top 108-pounders in my opinion. A guy that could very well rival Taguchi for that very top spot at 108 pounds. And Kazuto Yoka, who himself is a 3-weight world champion and a guy who is a current world champion at Flyweight, who is also going to be defending this title. And of course, I'll get more on that in the video where I talk about that particular fight. Otherwise, one of the other losses that he had was to the legendary Eagle Denjin Lafan, aka Eagle Kiowa, a Thai fighter who fought out of Japan. Bit of a legend in his own right at the lowest weight classes, 105 pounds in particular. But he also has wins over Toshiyuki Igarashi, a former champion Edgar Sosa, Oscar Blanquet, and Javier Mendoza, who is the man that he defeated in order to win this IBF champion, become a 3-weight world titleist, where he first won his first title at 105, jumped up to 112, won the title there, dropped down to 108, and defeated Mendoza to get the title that he currently has. As for Basapian, aka Kokitjim, he has a pretty impressive a few names on his resume overall. Lost the decision to Rani Petrokorin, who's one of the top fighters at 108 pounds. Was TKO'd by Denver Cuello way back in 2011. I think it was only about 6 fights into his career for that fight, though. And Denver Cuello is definitely one of the big names of the lowest weight classes over the last 10 years or so. A little bit past it now, but back when he fought him back in 2011, he was right in the middle of his prime, in the middle of his rise to becoming a champion himself. And then, of course, Naoya Inoue. Naoya Inoue managed to TKO Kokijim in the 11th round to make a defense of his WBC World Light Flyweight title. So, in spite of the fact that Kokijim is definitely coming into this fight a bit of a heavy underdog, considering the fact that he's lost his biggest fights. As I mentioned, the biggest names that he fought, he took losses to. He is a skilled veteran, a guy that is coming in to win, and a guy that is just a tough, gritty guy. He's fought some of the who's who, as I mentioned before, and he's definitely a big underdog going in against Yagashi. Yagashi should be a comfortable favorite, but Yagashi is a guy that's engaged in a lot of wars in his career. The fight with Yoka was a war. His eyes were pretty much shut at the end of that fight. Fight with Roman Gonzalez, war. The eyes were pretty much shut. And then when he got TKO in the 9th round of that fight. Pedro Guevara, another war. Got cut up a little bit, got scuffed up, swollen up a bit more of a close fight compared to, say, the Gonzalez fight. A bit more close to the Ioka fight, which was a Fight of the Year candidate back in 2012. But once again, it was just a tough, gritty fight. Even the fight with Javier Mendoza, even though he won that fight pretty comfortably on the scorecards, he had to work his ass off every single round in order to get those rounds. And he definitely showed a lot of damage. In spite of the fact that he was able to, by and large, manhandle Mendoza, somewhat similar to the way that Sean Porter is able to kind of manhandle a lot of his opponents, just by virtue of just sheer physical force and physicality, just being just a strong, tough, rugged guy. And the same thing with Martin Tecopetla in what was his first defense of his newly won IBF light flyweight title, where it was a very tough fight. He won it by split decision. Tecopetla could have very easily came home with the decision, but it just wasn't to be for him. And just another tough fight. And in Tecopetla was a guy that was 13-6-3, so not necessarily the most impressive record numbers wise, but a guy that was a pretty tough opponent in his own right, just by virtue of the fact that he lost close decisions to the likes of Milan Melindo and Jose Agomedo, who are Melindo is a top level contender. He's actually going to be the mandatory for Yagashi coming up here in a little while, considering that he just won a big fight about a month ago. And Jose Agomedo, who is one of the current champions at 105 pounds, the actual IBF world champion at 105 pounds, guy that managed to defeat Katsunori Takayama in fairly impressive fashion. So that is going to be there along with the main event. Of course, it'll most likely be coming on before the main event. I'm not sure exactly which station is going to have it, but I'm going to try to find out exactly which particular station is going to be showing this fight compared to the other fights. And I'll put in the link and the station as well as the time in the description box below, so that you guys, or either the description or the comment section. I might just do both to make it easier for all you guys to try and find these fights if you want to watch them live on the live stream. And then, of course, once I do my post fights, I'll put up some links to the videos so that you guys can check them out after the fact if you happen to not be able or available to watch it live on the live streams. So Naoya Inoue versus Kohei Kono, good WBO super flyweight title bout, and Akira Higashi versus Martin Tecopetla for the IBF light flyweight title. It should be two solid fights. On the undercard, of course, a little bit deeper, there's Ryuji Hara, up and coming minimum weight, up and coming strawweight, fighting against Hirori Yamamoto, which will possibly be on the card. And then we also have up and coming super middleweight or / middleweight Ryota Murata. He's actually a fighter that's co-promoted with Top Rank. So we may see Murata in particular stateside, or just Western Hemisphere side in the next few years, considering the fact that he's a high level middleweight / super middleweight contender. He's going to be fighting this fight at super middleweight apparently against Bruno Sandoval, tough 19-1-1 with 15 knockouts fighter from Mexico City. So that'll be pretty interesting to see. I'm sure that'll probably be one of the featured bouts, considering the fact that Murata is a little bit of a quick rising star. May get a title shot in the near future. And then as well as Naoya Inoue's brother, I'm not sure if it's his brother or his cousin, Koki Inoue, who is actually a light welterweight / welterweight. 5-0 with 4 knockouts, and we may be seeing him stateside sometime in the near future, considering his weight class as well. But that's all I got for this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.